Hello, my name is Meg Dendler, and this is my What If Writing Workshop. This is a workshop. I normally do this live with a group of individuals. I'm going to be giving you moments to pause to do some writing because we are going to be writing. So get a pen, pencil, your computer, whatever it is that is how you like to write. Make sure you have that at hand. When we're in person, we would be having a lot more conversation. This will last about 15 minutes, but there will be times in there where you've paused. So it will actually take you a little bit longer, assuming you do all the writing, which is the whole point of a workshop. So please do the writing. The first thing we're going to do, which is how I always start this workshop, is that we are going to do a story starter, is what we called them when I was teaching. So I'm going to give you the beginning of the story, and you're going to do about 5 minutes worth of writing. So you'll pause this for about 5 minutes. You're not writing the whole story. You're just starting to get some ideas going. So here's your story starter. Right now, this moment, wherever you are, there is a huge explosion outside. I mean, huge. The ground shakes. Everybody stops and looks. What happens next? That's all you've got. Pause me for about 5 minutes. Here's something cute to look at. Okay. Now, if we were all together, we would have a chance to, share ideas. The things that I found the most interesting for this particular story starter is it really matters, first of all, where you are. If you're in a small town, you probably are not, going to big things like a terrorist. It's, I've been in restaurants before doing workshops for people like in Pizza Hut, and they're more worried about something in the kitchen. But if you're in a big city, you go more to, a plane has crashed into something. It's terrorists. Depending on the genre you write, you might have had it be a dragon. You might have had it be a portal to another dimension. None of those answers are wrong. What if is really just brainstorming. That's the core of it. And if you are brainstorming and you have worked in a business or in school where you've done this, there are no wrong answers in brainstorming. There are things you may decide later on that you don't want, that aren't helpful, that don't, continue things on in the direction you want to go. But while you are doing the brainstorming, there is no wrong answer. The only wrong answer would be stopping your writing. Okay? We don't want to do that. And I'm going to give you an example of this what-ifing your way into bigger things. Back in 2010, maybe, I'm not even sure when it actually started. I wrote a little short story that was about my cat as an alien, because this cat, Kimba, was really, really weird, and she was forever doing weird things. And so this kind of short story developed into maybe an early reader chapter book. I have a degree in early childhood education. That's my focus. I taught reading for little kids, so I love writing for kids. It's not all that I do, but I do a lot of writing for kids. You can see all my toys behind me on my shelves there. So as this book continued to progress, one day I just sat down and I took this first little story idea that I had. And I said, what if? What if this involved all of the cats in our house? What if the dogs got involved? What if I actually made this a series? And so I just started to write stuff down. And it was maybe a couple of hours. I was actually at Dave & Buster's, if they have those where you are. My older daughter was having her birthday party. So all I had to do was just kind of be there. And I just sat at the table in the bar there and wrote and wrote and wrote pages and pages of the things that could happen, that could possibly happen within this story. So what we ended up with was book 1 is Why Kimba Saved the World. And then book 2, Vacation Hero. 3, Miss Fatty Cat's Revenge. I actually wrote the titles down before I actually wrote the books. I knew what the titles were, which is not usually the direction that goes. That's the process we're talking about here, is taking a little idea, deciding whether you like it or not. My husband forever wants me to write romance books because romance books sell really well. Well, I don't really read a lot of romance books. I don't want to write that. So Even the best romance idea is probably not something I'm going to personally write. I may tell a friend, whatever. Um, you need to just have lists. You need to have lots of ideas flowing all the time. That's the concept behind the writing an hour every day. I don't hold to the fact you absolutely have to do that, especially once you've established your writing system. But when you're first starting out, I don't believe in writer's block. Writer's block just means you're not sitting down, putting pen to paper, and coming up with ideas. There's a bazillion ideas in the world. So let's take another second and let's do a little bit of that, of just some story ideas. Let's see. We'll do quarter this time for you to look at. So you're going to pause me, and let's give this one about 5 minutes if you need it, but if you need longer, that's fine. I want you to write down at least 3 story ideas. You can do more. Again, you're at home. You can pause this for 6 hours if you want to pause it for 6 hours. But really, 3 is the main thing we want here. 3 ideas for a story that you may or may not ever write. It doesn't matter. It could be a stupid story. It could be the brightest thing that's ever happened. That's up to you. Okay, pause me and write. Thanks, Corduroy. Okay. Again, if we were live and all together, then we would sit down and share our ideas. I don't know if there will be some way to, do that in the comments or have some back and forth. You'll just have to go forward from here on your own. So you have your 3 story ideas. Now, are any of those really interesting to you? Because here's the thing. When you write a book, when you write a novel, it's a long process, not just the writing it. These editing, the proofreading, the seeing it published, it's a long process. So you want to really come up with something that you just can't not write. You have to write it. It's so fun for you. It's so interesting. You really want to share it with everybody. So hopefully one of those ideas has that potential to get you that interested. An example on this, a lot of you, especially if this is going out into the Ozarks area, may know Velda Brotherton. I did a workshop rather like this with her a few years ago, and we did this same sort of thing. She was being very specific for the genre that she was working on, which was historical fiction. But I went off in a different direction, which y'all are at home. I'll never know. You could be going off in a different direction as well. But she had us think of a place that had been very important in our lives, a real place, and then putting ourselves in there and then putting an imaginary character in there. And that would be one of my normal questions. In that first opening that we did you write it about yourself and how you would react? Or did you write it about how a character would react, how somebody, a prince, or, whatever, a superhero? That's all fine. But part of that is leading you towards where that story is going to go, what it is you like to write. Are you writing more about someone like yourself, or are you writing more about somebody completely different from yourself? I tend to write about animals, so they're very different from me, and I want them to be animals, not people animals. And in this workshop with Velda, I ended up going in a completely different direction than what she really wanted us to be going, I think. But I ended up with a main character who's half tiger, half human. The place that I had thought of was actually Anne Frank's hiding place, that attic where I have been. I have stood in that attic, in the little annex there in her room. And that brainstorming led me completely different direction from everything I was working on into a book that's close to 100,000 words that will be out in October. I don't know when you're watching this, but it'll be out in October of 2020. You don't know where it's going to go. You just need to do the what-ifing, the brainstorming. I didn't expect to get a book out of going to see Velda. That was just, she's a friend. I wanted to go support her workshop. If you're watching this just because you want to support me, that's great, but I hope you get a book out of it. Okay, so we're going to take our 3 story ideas and we're going to make them bigger. We're going to what if those story ideas. Pick one for these purposes. Now, again, you could pause me for 6 hours and I'll never know, and you could write about all of them. But for the context of what we're doing right here together, pick one of those story ideas, the one that sounds the most interesting, and write down 10 things that could happen in that story. Again, no wrong ideas. You can add whatever you want to. You can suddenly make it a romance. You can suddenly make it a dark murder mystery. There's violent killers running around. I'll never know. You can do whatever you want to do. So pause me again and give yourself a good chunk of time, however long it takes you. And what are 10 things that could happen within that story, whether they're interesting or not, whether they're big events or not. Little events can lead to big things. Just 10. All right, we have the pokey little puppy this time that you can look at while you're paused. Go. Okay. Did you get your 10 ideas? I hope so. Hold on, I'm clicking through. Okay, I knew we had one more thing. I've got my workshop up on my other computer over there, what you would normally be looking at. All right, so from those 10 things that you wrote down, pick one of them. And we're actually going to kind of write that scene. Whichever one sounds the most interesting to you. Doesn't matter, or the easiest to write if you've gotten tired of this and you just want to finish up. I don't care. What could happen during that thing, during that event, or during that transition from one thing to another, whatever it is you wrote about? Pick one of those 10 things and write that scene. Probably give yourself a good 10 minutes here. You don't have to write it perfectly. You don't have to edit it. You don't have to proofread it. You just need to write it. Just get the ideas flowing. So for the next 10 minutes, I've run out of cute animals. We'll have to go back to the Talia the tiger. Take some time, write that scene. Go. Okay. I think we're pretty good. We only have 15 minutes for this. I would love to hear some of the things you've written. Writing workshops are not great done on video this way, but we're doing what we have to do to try to at least keep things flowing. I hope you have been able to write during 2020. I have been, but I just make myself. A lot of what I have done has been involved actually publishing my next novel and getting that edited and proofread. That's not a very creative process, but it is part of the process. I hope you continue to work on whatever you've worked on during this workshop, whatever you've begun. Maybe you've changed your mind on which one you thought was the most interesting. So go through those steps with another one of those pieces and say, well, maybe this one's more interesting after all. Or maybe you come up with something completely different. I would love to hear if you have come up with anything wonderful during this. You're welcome to reach out to me at Meg Welch Dendler at gmail.com. I think they're going to be adding things before and after this video that maybe they can do that for you. I'm about at my time. Thank you so much for being part of this little workshop, and keep writing.